In this series, you'll see me going from like an actual vlog. So you'll see me going from uh, the actual point of where I can kind of show you where I came from, and so you can kind of see that I'm not some raving lunatic spotting off things that are what most people on the left wing would probably say is insane, or most people on the right wing would say I'm not supporting the troops because I don't support intervention, and most people in between might not fully agree with because they're not fully looking at some of the backstories. But you'll basically see with it because of the full trip, because I've been pretty much across the whole political spectrum. You also see, I'll also go into some of the uh, personal aspects of me a little bit as well, so you can kind of get a better feel for me and understand that I'm this really just an average person as well, and where I come from. First of all, when it comes politically, I've been pretty much across the spectrum. My parents originally were pretty much regular Democratic supporters across the whole ticket. They used to be pretty much like your regular daily supporters because originally I am from Illinois, as my parents grew up in Chicago and moved out to the suburbs, and that's where I grew up. And this is where basically I came from, and it was just within the last few years that I came here up to south eastern Wisconsin, where I am right now. That's for both being closer to my niece and for basically because it's a lot it's a lot financially easier to live here, and it's a lot calmer than it is in Illinois, and there's a lot better options than there are down there because of the way the economic situation is, because of the way the states develop debt and such. When it comes down to politically, is I pretty much have, because of this way I was raised, I pretty much have been across the whole aisle from uh, all extremes of the left to all extremes of the right uh, to everywhere in between, and looking basically at the most logical approach. My idea was I wanted someone to basically give me kind of an idea where I can come from, where it made sense that we would have the most freedom, but also it would basically aid the most people. And I was thinking basically, in if there was some way to, at some point, this would have been basically pretty much around periods throughout on and off from basically junior high throughout maybe like the up to about maybe 2000, that I'd say I thought there was a positive idea that we could have some type of voluntary like socialism. But it basically, I when I had a person in actually a music chat room came up that I talked to, actually brought a unique statement to me, and they stated that what if someone actually chooses to live in poverty as an individual choice? And it was actually something that actually kind of clicked with me, something that was actually quite profound. And this was something that actually kind of struck a chord with me, of saying that not everyone's going to essentially want to live in wealth naturally. Everyone's going to essentially put values on certain things. And this was where it kind of really kind of clicked with me. This was about 2001. And it really kind of changed the way I viewed things. Now, while I had what it called gone back and forth through uh, conservative ideas before and gone across the whole spectrum, nothing had really clicked before. But this is actually where I kind of got an idea of just at least something. And I'd gotten to a point to where I knew what I where I basically wanted, where people could make their own decisions of where they wanted to go, but I wasn't sure exactly what that was and how to get to that point politically to articulate that thought, uh, or even the way economically that would work. And it really wasn't until the actual Tea Party revolution when I heard Dr. Rand Paul speak that he was actually articulating some of the same ideas that was actually really making sense, and that was really where things were starting to actually click. And that was basically where you're actually having the freedom to choose what way you want to live without somebody above basically telling you how you're supposed to live, and having the freedom, basically freedom of choice of what you want to do. And it was something completely different, and basically stating that the how important it is that the actual debt gets under control. From the economic standpoint, when I was told before, it was that we owed it ourselves, not understanding that there were actually stakeholders on these that were well beyond the point of what anybody explained before, was that people actually owned this well beyond just U.S. buyers in of the actual debt. So it wasn't just that you had U.S. buyers, but people well beyond U.S. borders. They were buying these debt bonds that were paying for the stuff that we were buying, and that we could eventually pay it back. It was that we didn't necessarily owe it to the actual society. We actually essentially owed it to the stakeholders, and we eventually were going to have to pay this back. And not all the stakeholders were coming from the United States. Now, this was something that was actually quite that spoke quite big to me, because this meant that it put the U.S. at risk for basically foreign ownership, just by spending too much money and spending more than was coming in. And even though we're still doing that at a horrible rate, it still speaks to me politically. Now, when it comes down to other issues that about me is basically is you'll find about me is the what kind of makes me myself is initially I went for being a chef, not much out of high school, and that was basically is I tried that, but not too much after that I had back injury, and that ended up becoming a what they initially thought was a herniated disc, but it was herniated so bad it was in the verge of basically was basically gone. The whole disc was virtually gone, so they had to remove the disc, put a cage in, and it was in. They had to do an S1L5 fusion, and they ended up finding spina bifida back there, and which ended up helping because they didn't have to do a bone graft off the hip, which is a benefit because that can sometimes delay some parts of the recovery. But in the end, with it, it pretty much ended my career of going in the culinary arts area because of the damage that had already been done from everything in the back. And because of that, I pretty much, this is where I got most of the part for the disability, pretty much the majority of it. And then when it comes down to other issues, is this kind of end up being a snowball's effect for mental health issues, for both chronic depression and OCD, which ended up popping up. Well, I had the OCD before, but I had never noticed it because I would end up pushing everything forward and nothing would ever come up without noticing it. I ended up noticing this later on with it when I would have essentially nothing to occupy myself, and it would become more of an issue. And as time went on, since then I've actually developed like a chronic vertigo that I basically have to take medicine for to kind of keep it at bay, because I've had migraines since I've been about 12, and because of that, that's actually been another issue. So with that, that's actually another issue that I handle. And but beyond that is so you might say, okay, so I've had a little bit of a rough patch. Then why have I been able to kind of stay up? Well, I've been able to what I call kind of meet people over the years that have been able to kind of keep me up, going positive. But I'd say what I call overall with it is probably currently because of my fiance. And I mean, you're not going to find anybody prettier on the outside or inside out there. I don't care which YouTuber you look at or which celebrity you look at, you're not gonna beat her at all. And for which for it doesn't matter if you're talking a YouTuber, a celebrity's wife, fiance, girlfriend, whatever, or actually the actual person themselves. With it, it really doesn't matter because, in my opinion, that she kind of like beats them all by far. I'm not kind of like overly boasting because I think she can easily hold her own with any of them. She actually, this is like a while back, but she had to do for a company. They kind of made her be in one of their like little fashion show things, and I ended up having to help her like learn how to do a walk for a fashion show. So I ended up finding a tutorial for her, and even some of my friends from high school asked about her if she's actually a model, and I said nope, not a model. And that's what was a little bit humorous. And they asked her who did the clothes and stuff, and I said that it was her and the other people at the company were doing like the clothes and putting everything together. So they were amazed at that as well. And it just shows you how resourceful she is, and she just has this really upbeat attitude, and anytime something bad happens with me, she just tends to keep pulling me up. Uh, her birthday's on Christmas, so I end up referring to her as Lady Jesus or referring to the holiday as Christinamas, because the fact is, if she's what you call not helping me with something or helping someone else with something, she's off doing some charity thing for disadvantaged people or disadvantaged kids or something. And this is always what she does with it. She's a big animal lover, and I mean, there's pretty much nothing bad you can say about her. She's like as great as you can believe. And I mean, she's intelligent, she's beautiful, she's real funny. I mean, you really can't beat her. Now, it just seems like I'm just bragging on, but the fact is it's frankly the truth. And this is really what it comes down to, is that you're not going to find anything like her. Now, when it comes down to it, that's part of the reason why I've established this podcast is I want to kind of end up developing some type of income because she's also my fiance is. So I want to establish some type of income to eventually try to get some decent earnings, because being on disability, it's a little hard to get some work, and especially with limitations and being and having the limitations from the back and the OCD and such, it does make things a little bit limited. So I'm using this as the ability to earn some income, and that's why I'm doing this. And hopefully this ends up taking off, and that's why I've done this so far. So it's not like I'm some the next right-wing star or something I'm looking at, but I'm actually just looking at just being able to establish some steady income that I can actually use to just basically help with a family, and that's basically about it. I'm not exactly looking on basically trying to start up a movement or anything like that. My only thing is to basically spread positive information, and that's about it. There's nothing extreme that I'm going out there spreading. I'm basically want to basically fix some things that people have been taught wrong, that I've actually been taught properly, and I think that's something that I can do positively out there. And I want to give some interesting subjects out there, and it's going to be where certain things the left is going to dislike me, certain things the right's going to dislike me, so it's going to be somewhere in the middle that I end up going for, because you're going to see where certain things where I'm going to be on the side of people for the right to boycott Israel, but also on the other side is I'm going to be pro-life, which is going to anger left-wing people. So I'm going to kind of anger both people. And it doesn't matter if people try to say, oh, but Israel's developing a cure for cancer. It frankly doesn't matter, because it's the actual right for freedom. And that's what I'm always going to be advocating for. And this is really where I kind of stand. And this is actually something that my beautiful fiance also stands for as well, which is something that kind of draws me to love her as well. On top of that is that she kind of stands for these ideas of freedom and liberty as well. And that's really something that's hard to find out there. And to see that she loves me, and that and that she loves all these ideas, is just something that's really, really hard to find when you find people out there that are gravitated toward ideas that aren't exactly pro-freedom and pro-liberty, and people that just aren't exactly the most desirable to be around. And to find someone like her is just unbelievable. And that's where I'm sitting at right now with it. And as different stages of my life go, I'll add to this post. I'm probably not going to do one of those follow me during the day, because my days aren't exactly the most exciting, and they're not exactly going to be the most jaw-dropping of, wow, look what he did during this day. I mean, it's not exactly going to be doing much until probably later on down the road, but it's really not going to be likely that I do one of these follow me during the day type of idea of a vlog type of post. It's going to be basically straight up, nothing about it, and keep it simple, and just basically kind of giving people a heads up of what I'm about. If there's any questions, you want to kind of find more about me, feel free to kind of comment or anything about that, and I'll kind of get right back to you on that. Okay, bye for now, and subscribe, and click the bell, and share it around if you like what you see here, and try to see if you can get more people to my YouTube page. Bye.